Hello there, everybody. This is Silver Soul. As I stated in my last upload, my body, primarily my knees, aren't really agreeing with me, so I'm not allowed to get up and do anything or go anywhere. So I'm probably going to finish up a couple of these really quickly and just throw them up on YouTube as soon as I get a chance. I'm going to be continuing When Friendship Dies by StrawberryDashie. This is Chapter 9, Always. There's a little author's note here at the beginning. So I haven't updated in a while, so I'm giving you 2 chapters. Sorry if it took so long, couldn't find a nice place to split it. Yeah, this is quite a long chapter. Please review. Sorry, I really want to know what you guys think. I'm okay with constructive criticism, or just a simple, hey, I like your story, I just want to know. How much you write I will read. Oh, and I actually had 2 names for this chapter, but I went with Always because I'm a big Harry Potter nerd. I think I'm going to use that for the upcoming one, though. It's going to be really big. I bet you are not expecting it to happen. It's going to be good, I hope, but of course I won't know unless you review. Thanks, have a great day. Okay, that is the author's note at the beginning of this chapter. Sorry if I read that too fast for you to really hear it, but I'm wanting to get into the story. I said this is Chapter 9 Always, and I'm going to be attempting voices. I would appreciate any degree of review on my voices. I also still think I did a very bad Twilight, but I'm going to keep trying. This chapter goes back and looks at the 5 that are looking for Twilight. So, without further ado, here we go. The sun had risen over the everfree forest, and the 5 ponies began their journey again, with Rainbow Dash in the lead once more. She kept flying up and checking for damage to the forest, but to no avail. They continued wandering until they finally needed to eat something. I do hope there are nice daisy fits. I apologize. I do hope there are nice daisies fit for sandwiches, Rarity said, expectant of a full-course meal and a nice table to sit at. Sure, Rarity, Applejack said, slapping a nice helping of mud in front of her hooves, letting it splash on the unicorn. There's your sandwich. Rarity gasped, jumping backward. Applejack, I know you are a muddy farm pony, but honestly, you know I take great care in my appearance. I haven't gotten to curl my mane or tail today. My coat isn't sparkling, and my makeup is wearing off. Couldn't you at least have the courtesy to allow me to have clean hooves? Pinkie Pie jumped up in front of them. Hey, don't fight! I've made you a meal you both like! At this, the ponies looked up with curious looks. Pinkie Pie grinned and held out 2 leaves with 1 cube of dirt on each. Pinkie, is that dirt? Yep. I'm not eating it, Rarity said, turning her head. But it's in a cube! I made it neat just for you! Pinkie said, sounding disappointed. Pinkie, it's still dirt, Rainbow Dash pointed out. And so the 4 ponies bickered. But Fluttershy was sitting off to the side, staring at the ground beside a tree. She sighed as she continued drawing in the dirt. Her route was getting further along, and if no one interrupted her, it could be done soon. But her mind kept getting distracted. Last night had brought up the thoughts she had never wanted to think of again. Ones that made her think completely differently about herself, others, and, more importantly, a certain pony. She was very upset, and when you're that sad, you don't think about everything you do. The words replaying in her head. Fluttershy lowered her head and closed her eyes. Why had all that happened to her? Why not someone else? Fluttershy? Applejack said, prodding her with a hoof. Are you okay? The yellow Pegasus hadn't even noticed they had stopped fighting and were all eating some red berries that looked somewhat dangerous, but it seemed no one cared. Applejack! Fluttershy stuttered, looking up, obviously startled. Yes, that's my name, Applejack smiled, settling down beside her and chewing her own berries. Are you okay? You seem kinda, I don't know, sad.
Oh,
I was just thinking about last night. Applejack's front hoof shut up, and she pointed at the sketches in the dirt, mostly lines and hastily scribbled town names. Hey, is that your route? I forgot to ask, you almost done? I was thinking about it too, and I think it'd be best to find out if she's there or not as soon as possible, so we can get a move on with things. We might want to hurry a bit, 'cause if she really is in Canterlot, it would be good to know. Applejack suddenly stopped, lowering her hoof. I'm sorry, Fluttershy. Back to you. So, anyway, are you okay? I, like I said, I was just thinking about last night, and some stuff I remembered, Fluttershy said, her head hanging and her teal eyes sadly staring into the brown dirt. About... Well, see, I said... Fluttershy stopped and looked up, giving a weak smile to Applejack with tears in her eyes. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. Applejack frowned at Fluttershy. This wasn't nothing. Fluttershy did get emotional sometimes, but not when she was thinking about nothing. Fluttershy, do you want to talk? Applejack said, placing a hoof on hers. The Pegasus shut her eyes tightly and nodded quickly, jumping up and flying into the trees close to the ground. Applejack followed slowly, making sure the others didn't notice her slip into the darkness. Then she broke into a run, trying to follow the fast-moving pony in front of her. The only thing visible of Fluttershy was the end of her tail, flickering as leaves and shadows covered it for moments before appearing again. And suddenly Applejack realized they were going very far, and she knew it had to be something big, really big. Fluttershy obviously didn't want the others to hear or know or see, but Applejack couldn't put her finger on why. Why trust me and not Rarity? Applejack thought, her green eyes narrowing. Fluttershy and Applejack had never been too close, but Rarity had gotten along with the Pegasus almost the moment they met, when Fluttershy stopped Rarity's carriage that was going down the street. Applejack had been selling apples with Big Mac when she was much younger, and couldn't do it alone. Rarity had told Applejack and Twilight all about that day during a truth or dare game, the night of the thunderstorm. It was one of the most touching stories Applejack had ever heard. A gold carriage, pulled by two white stallions with smug looks on their face, was going down Main Street on a normal day in Ponyville. As they went along, they watched the jealous looks from other stallions walking along the street. Inside the carriage was a young Rarity, who was staring outside with eagerness. Her eyes took in everyone and everything, even listening as some of the ponies gossiped while staring back at her. Is that Cage carrying Pearl? Didn't she just get back from Canterlot? I heard she was out with a stallion. Don't be ridiculous. She's been with her agent planning a new modeling session. Rarity smiled as they talked about her mother. She knew that she came from an amazing pony model, Pearl. In fact, Pearl was best friends with Photo Finish. She was extremely proud to be with her mother right now, grinning as the ponies glanced inside with shock and jealousy. Rarity turned to her mother and watched her a moment as she applied a fresh coat of eyeshadow and used her magic to redo her mane in an elegant bun on top of her head. Rarity admired her mother more than she thought possible. She was just so beautiful and smart and popular, and everything a good mom should be. Except, not really. Rarity had grown up with her, but Pearl never had time for her little foal, always too busy getting a new fashion line on the runway or rushing off to photo shoots. It was as if little Rarity was a burden to her. Rarity never minded, though. She understood, but it always made her a bit sad when she'd ask her mom to talk and be ignored, or tell her she made straight A's hoping for a congratulations, but always being rejected. Sometimes Rarity was treated like scum. Her mother didn't have time to feed her since she was gone all day and then got back and fell asleep on the couch, too exhausted to go to bed, so Rarity had to search for food. If she was lucky, there'd be some low-fat bars in the refrigerator, but mostly she had to settle with an apple she would get from Sweet Apple Acres when no one was looking. But Rarity still didn't mind. She was just glad she had a mother at all, especially one so pretty. "What are you looking at?" Pearl said, and Rarity noticed she was staring at her mother. You? Rarity blurted out, caught off guard. I mean, you're just so pretty. I know, Pearl said, returning to her makeup. I'd like to see the ponies smile, Rarity said, looking outside again. Smiling? Pearl retorted. Smiling is for weak ponies. Ponies shouldn't smile, it just makes them look funny. When you have a serious look, people take you seriously. When you have a funny look, people think you're a joke. But isn't it important to be happy? Rarity lowered her ears, looking back at her mother. Please, happiness doesn't matter. All that matters is money. You can't buy things with happiness. Money runs this place. Take the money you can get, and if you can't get any, don't do it, Pearl said lazily, not even paying attention to her daughter's sad look. I think happiness is more important. You're wrong, Pearl said flatly, making Rarity's eyes lower to the carriage floor. Well, I'm going to be happy when I grow up, Rarity said after a pause. Really? Her mother said, still looking completely bored. Really, I'm going to start my own fashion line and make it amazing. All the models will wear my designs, and they'll be on runways, and everyone will love me, and I'll be happy because all the ponies will smile. Rarity grinned, imagining a nice boutique that sold cute clothes and the hottest fashions, ones worthy of her mother. Ha! Pearl smiled. That's a nice joke. I wasn't joking, Rarity said, looking at her sadly again. Please, there's no way you could possibly ever do that, Pearl responded, closing her makeup kit. Dreams get you nowhere. You have to be sensible, Rarity. Don't believe in things that will never be possible. My teacher says I can be anything I want. Well, she is wrong. Pearl cut her daughter off quickly. Rarity sighed. Sometimes she felt like her mother never believed in her. She felt like her mother could think one way, and she felt like her mother could only think one way, and everyone else was wrong if they didn't think her way. Stubborn, that's what she was. But that just made Rarity want to accomplish her dreams even more. She'd do it just to prove Pearl wrong. She'd show her, and... Ah! Rarity screamed, being thrown against the other wall of the carriage. It had come to a sudden stop without reason. Pearl rolled her eyes and opened the door, letting the carpet staircase roll out. She stepped outside over to the front. Rarity scrambled out to follow her. What is this? Pearl said, glaring at a small heap on the road in front of the stallions. This filly just jumped in front of the carriage and almost got herself run over. One of the stallions growled in a gruff voice. Well, Pearl said, sounding disgusted. The small pony got up and looked at her, teal eyes watering. I'm just so sorry. I just needed you to stop, it said, letting its pink hair fall on her face. You should be ashamed of yourself, running around like you own the place, jumping in front of carriages. Do you know who I am? Where are your parents? They obviously don't know how to take care of children properly. I have half a mind to tell everyone in Canterlot what a horrible filly you are, jumping in front of my carriage like you can tell me to stop. I'll have you know I have security following not far behind. They'll take you, Pearl said, stomping her hooves and shouting at the small yellow Pegasus. Rarity watched as the filly started crying and apologizing, talking about how she was just trying to save some ducks crossing the road. As she watched the scene, something came over her, and Rarity pushed her mother out of the way and stood in front of the young Fluttershy. Leave her alone! She doesn't deserve this! She was just trying to help the ducks! Rarity squeaked angrily. Stay out of this, daughter! Pearl said, slowly pushing her away. I have a name! Rarity glared, moving back and standing up tall. Mom, she was trying to take care of babies, unlike someone! Pearl gasped, holding a hoof to her mouth. How dare you suggest such a thing? Why, But Rarity wasn't listening. She was lifting Fluttershy to her feet and pushing her hair out of her face. That was very brave. Rarity smiled at Pegasus. I could never have done that. The Pegasus smiled and stared at the ground. I'm Rarity. the unicorn said. I'm Fluttershy, she said quietly, looking up at her. Let's be friends! Okay. Fluttershy smiled and followed Rarity as she walked off toward the market, where a teenage Mr. and Mrs. Cake were selling sweets. Applejack had not forgotten that day. The friendship between them that bonded instantly the way Rarity stood up for her against her own mother. Applejack wished she had a friendship that strong. For a moment, her thoughts rested on a certain purple pony she knew. But she shook it off. That hadn't lasted. It was nice to have someone who trusted her, with what appeared to be a big secret. Good to have someone who would turn to her, someone who counted on her, believed in her, and would be by her side, always. Applejack tripped for a second, not realizing Fluttershy had stopped, and she was sprawled on the ground, crying. Oh, Applejack! Fluttershy sobbed in the grass. Why? The orange pony said, walking toward her. What's wrong, Fluttershy? But there was no response, just more wailing, more tears. So Applejack sat beside her and ran a hoof through her hair repeatedly until Fluttershy looked up at her with the saddest eyes Applejack had ever seen. A pang of despair ran through Applejack, as if she was feeling her friend's pain, the emotions in her heart. Applejack looked down at the ground, hoping it would stop, and when she looked away it did. But that sadness in her eyes was just too much. Remember when I said that sometimes ponies don't think far ahead because they're in so much pain they don't think at all? Applejack looked back at Fluttershy and saw her eyes were closed, and Applejack was very relieved. She laid beside her and murmured a yes. Well, I know because when I was a filly before Ponyville, when I was in Cloudsdale, I was the other ponies. They didn't like me too much, and they bullied me, Applejack. The only thing that kept me going was that sometimes Rainbow would stand up for me, but she couldn't be there always. The other girls made fun of me when I was alone. Fluttershy kept describing her past at flight school, and Applejack listened, her heart breaking a bit more with each insult Fluttershy remembered. How could someone be so mean to someone as sweet, as kind as Fluttershy? But then one night, I was so sick of it, I couldn't take it anymore. I cried each night and hoped the next day would be better. But it never was. Soon all my hope was gone. Right after a pony threatened me. She said I was trying to cheat off her, and she'd kill me. Fluttershy trembled and hid her face again. I was so scared, so I snuck out and went to the edge of the cloud. I knew I couldn't fly very well. I was going to end it all, and then I jumped. Fluttershy squeaked, tears pouring down her face again. I let myself jump off the cloud and fall. I was so scared, and I remember crying as hard as ever. But I just kept thinking it would all be over soon, and I wouldn't have to cry or be sad, and it would be like none of this ever happened. Everything would be okay again. My mom and dad would carry me up into the sky, and I would never have another worry. The pain of yesterday would be gone. But I was falling forever, it seemed, as if I wasn't falling at all. Before I knew it, I felt a cloud under my hooves. I opened my eyes to see Rainbow Dash standing there, tears in her eyes as well. And she said, "You really scared me there, Fluttershy. Don't do it again." She saved my life, Applejack. If she hadn't been there, I would have died and everyone would have let me. But she cared about me. She actually cared what happened to my life, my future. And she asked me why I did it. And I told her. And then she said she was sorry for not being there. For not saving me from their words. She took me back up to my room and made sure I was safe in bed before she went back to her room and grabbed a blanket. She slept on my floor that night and stayed with me the next day. Of course, she couldn't stay around me all the time, but from then on, she always seemed to show up when they tormented me. She was always there to save me. Fluttershy whispered, her eyes red as she continued crying. Always. Applejack watched her a moment before Fluttershy burst out. Why did I do it? Fluttershy wailed. I tried to kill myself. I almost did it too. It's nothing to be ashamed of. We all have low spots, Fluttershy. We all have times when we think all hope is lost. And sometimes it turns out wrong. Applejack said quietly, placing a hoof on her shoulder. But someone was there for you. She turned the low into good. Think, if you hadn't tried that, Rainbow wouldn't be your friend. You just have to remember that the past is the past and you can't change it. But you can change the future. As long as you don't do it again, you don't have to worry about it, Fluttershy. Good things will come. You just can't lose hope. Like right now, Twilight thinks we hate her. But the rest of us have each other to solve this problem and get through it. And none of us are going to leave each other. We have to believe and make the best out of the situation, Applejack said, pushing Fluttershy's mane out of her face. Now I want you to sit up and dry your tears. Fluttershy looked up, the same sad look in her eyes. Applejack squeezed her eyes shut and kept a determined face. Do it, Fluttershy, she said in a calm but firm voice. When she opened her eyes, Fluttershy was sitting against a tree, with her mane out of her face and a hoof around her eyes, trying to wipe the tears away. Now go jump in that stream, Applejack said, pointing to the water not far away. Fluttershy's eyes widened, astonished. It's just so we can explain your red eyes and wet face. Go on, I'll do it too. The two ponies jumped into the stream and then clambered out, heading back to the others who were looking for them. Hey, where were you guys? Rainbow squeaked. Are you okay? She said, flying up to them quickly. Don't go running off like that. You scared me. We're fine. Just a bit of an incident in the river, that's all, Applejack said, brushing it off and looking away from them. Rainbow stared for a moment with a disbelieving face. Don't do that again. You really scared me. Rainbow stared at Fluttershy a moment, then Applejack, then continued through the trees, Fluttershy trailing behind the others. She felt better, as if something had been lifted from her chest. She was glad she had someone to share her burden with. She wasn't alone in this any longer. She was finally safe. And that is the end of chapter 9. I couldn't really do a filly rarity that was white. I couldn't really do a filly rarity that also had the transatlantic accent. I can't. I don't know how to make myself do that. So I couldn't do that part. Also, I hate Pearl. I hate Pearl so much. I hate Pearl so much. Congratulations, StrawberryDashie. You created an OC that I absolutely hate. It's a good hate. You're supposed to hate him, but I still hate him. Congratulations on that, Miss StrawberryDashie. Okay, a couple of things, just more review than anything else. Where a teenage Mr. and Mrs. Cake were selling sweets. Teenage Mr. and Mrs. Cake. I just have to make an amusing comment here. If they were a teenage Mr. and Mrs. Cake, would that mean they were married as teenagers? I'm sorry, I just had to make that amusing little comment there. Also, a lot of the thing with saying hair and saying hair instead of mane bothered me. I don't know. It's just me. Well, I'm probably going to try to push on and do the next chapter right away. So, I will see you later, everybody.